It is my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers. Scott and Cyndi Hoffman are founders and co-owners of Ono Brewing Company in Chantilly, Virginia. Scott spent 20 years as an engineer and programming manager before opening Ono Brewing in 2017. With a focus on innovation and excellence and a passion for brewing beer, he has used his engineering skills to open the area's first brewery with a self-serve tap room. Cyndi and Scott, good morning, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Karen. We really appreciate it.
It's great to see you. So, what was your motivation for starting Ono Brewing Company?
You know, we've been entrepreneurs or had the entrepreneur spirit, like pretty much our whole marriage of 24 years here shortly. Always looking for something, but we could never quite figure out exactly where we could do something that would be unique. Living in Fairfax County, we started to see microbreweries open up around the region, and we kept asking ourselves, why does Fairfax County only have 6 microbreweries? And what we started researching it, we found out that Fairfax had the lowest per capita brewery rate in the country and is one of the most affluent counties in the country.
Fantastic. Scott, I know that you served some time in the military and both in the private sector. So how did your career in both the military and private sector prepare you for entrepreneurship?
You know, I've had just a super diverse career. From building a schoolhouse in Thailand in the military, to being a program manager, to working in a manufacturing facility. I did design engineering. I deployed big systems for the government. So I had a little bit, I'm homebrewed for 20 years. So I had a little bit of everything in my background to do, because we did all of our own general contracting, all of our own permitting. What we didn't have was that ability to, hey, we actually ran a business. So I wanted to give you guys a plug here. First thing we did was reached out to y'all and got SCORE mentoring, reached out to the SBA and got SBA mentoring. And that mentoring was invaluable about that during that transition. So.
Thank you for sharing that. You heard throughout this presentation earlier today about the value of SCORE, and it's good to hear that you've used that resource to get you where you are today. So thank you for that. How does Ono Brewing Company differ from other breweries in the area? I know you talked about 6 microbreweries in Fairfax County. So what does Ono Brewing Company do that's different than the others?
You know, that was one of the first things we did was we said, hey, what are we going to do to be different? Because you can go into most breweries and they all kind of look the same and look and feel the same. They're in a warehouse setting. Not a lot of time is put into the atmosphere. So we said, first thing we wanted to do is like, hey, let's have like a winery type setting where you go and you want to spend all day. It's comfortable, it's nice. And let's make a brewery like that. We spent over 20 years in Hawaii and Florida. So we said, you know what, let's make it a tropical theme. Our kids have Hawaiian names. Her mom was born and raised
Hawaii.
So we said, let's do a tropical theme, a Hawaiian theme. We went into a self-serve wine bar in Reston Town Center, came home that night and said, we're going to do that for beer. It was awesome. We loved it, loved technology. So we started to kind of mold our theme, our atmosphere together. Another thing we did, we started a charity program. We've donated almost $80,000 in charity since we opened. So we said that this is who we are. That's how we decided we were going to be different.
The FCEDA had the opportunity to assist you with your ribbon cutting, and the experience there at your brewery certainly is quite unique. Congratulations on that success. The pandemic has affected a lot of businesses locally and nationwide. What lessons have you learned from the pandemic and applied them to your business?
Well, I think resiliency, being able to make changes and modifications. I think one of the biggest things we had to change was our business went from being primarily, in-house service to we were completely to go for a while. So we had to make that change. We had to cut staff. We had to be able to do what needed to be done to thrive or survive, even, yeah, I guess, survive during those years. We had to go lean and mean as much as possible. And we had to work more shifts and just do what needed to be done. So definitely, just resilience, pull up the bootstraps and just get through those hard times when they do come.
And one other comment on that, we're fortunate enough to be a fairly liquid brewery, small company. Having working capital on hand, that's exactly why small businesses need to plan for that.
Yeah.
For instances, hopefully we never ever see this again, but for other instances like this.
Great advice. So Cyndi and Scott, what advice would you give to those husbands and wives listening who may be contemplating starting a business together?
Well, our biggest piece of advice to a husband and wife entrepreneur couple is to have clear boundaries and designations as to who's in charge of what aspects of your business. We have a clear delineation. He's in charge of everything in what we call the back of the house. I'm in charge of the front of the house. Of course, we are business partners and we give each other advice. We bounce ideas off each other, and we try to make decisions together. But ultimately, we try to also respect. Okay. I've given you my feedback, but ultimately it's your decision what you do back there, and he vice versa. So that's one thing we would say is just make sure you have real clear boundaries and designation of who's doing what.
Yeah, and especially that first year. That first year, for us, it was 1 year. Some businesses, it could be 2 years, 3 years. That first year is really, really hard. We've told a lot of people, we cried ourselves to sleep several nights, just trying to get the word out and trying to let people know who we were. So, yeah.
Yeah, having a strong marriage is a good, strong foundation for starting a business together too.
Scott, how can a brewery differentiate itself in the growing market? I know we had talked recently about the IP.
Yeah, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's not just making good beer. It's not, I saw there was a bakery on there. It's not just making good donuts or good bread. It's tying it all together. For us, it's the theme. You can bring in people come here that have connections to Hawaii. Maybe they got married there. Maybe they were born there. Maybe they were just stationed there. The self-serve, that's different. People, as a technology person and not having to wait in line to come and get service. We found early on that we need, food trucks weren't really our thing. So we went out and teamed with a food vendor and brought them in and actually subleased our kitchen space out to them. It's basically location, making sure you have, it's all of the above. It's not just one thing. You really have to think through all of the above.
And what have you found to be a benefit of doing business here in Fairfax County?
Well, again, we don't, knock on wood, we don't have a lot of competitors. So there is a lot of people, a lot of well-to-do people in this area. Like in each brewery is kind of different. Some go more for the young hipster crowd. We are absolutely geared towards the business professionals, engineers, the government contractors, the government workers that are in this area here on the I-28 corridor. And fortunately, knock on wood, we don't feel like we're ever going to have a ton of extra competition from 10 breweries opening up around the corner. Fairfax has been really friendly to us going through the permitting and everything. That was the first time I had done that in Fairfax County, or really anywhere other than in the government. And it was like a team effort. At the end, everybody was cheering for us to get open. Everybody was helping us. And then, from start to finish, I left government contracting, and 11 months later, we opened our doors. So it was a great experience, honestly.
So for both of you, what's the best advice you can share with our audience about starting a business?
Boy, again, I think what we learned was making sure that you have the right amount of working capital to get you through that first year and beyond. I will give another plug for a resource I use. Liveplan.com is what we use to build our business plan. Highly recommend that. It really helped us map out and plan out a lot of the startup costs and everything. But I think my biggest one is just make sure you got enough working capital. And each business is different. Some will need more, some will need less. We're a pretty capital intensive manufacturing area. So we needed probably more than a lot of others.
And just also just that resiliency through that first year too. Just know that, there are many days where we sat out there, we were working because we couldn't necessarily afford to pay employees to sit there when there weren't customers there. And there would be just customers that would be like our only customers in there who now come in and they say, we're too busy. They missed the days where they were the only ones in there, but we had to just have faith that, people will find us. This will be, we just had to just keep on holding the faith and just.
And you figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Yep.
You'll do some things that just you won't ever do again. And then you'll do things and say, wow, that really worked. How can I make it better?
The few minutes that we have remaining, what advice would you like to give to our viewers about any aspect of the business that you've discovered over the 3 years that you've had your company? 3 or 4 years, excuse me.
A piece of advice as a small business owner, I would say, is that you're going to wear many hats too. I like to say, we give our job titles, and he used to say he was the head janitor, and I am, the bookkeeper, HR, social media. I mean, we all wear many hats, and you basically just constantly learn, grow, just try to fill in those gaps of what you don't know, so educating yourself and just being prepared to do all the things that need to get done. There are days where we're the owners and we clean the bathroom because that's what needs to get done. And you just have to be prepared to do what needs to get done in those early days, because there's a lot of different hats that need to be worn for sure.
Yeah, and just being diligent too, because doing anything in Northern Virginia can be expensive. From just having an air conditioner serviced to having an air conditioner replaced. Okay, there are resources out there. Maybe you go outside Northern Virginia a little bit that are more competitive. So don't just, if you get a quote and it seems unreasonably high, just be diligent and keep working and keep working and keep working. Like refrigeration guys, it was tens of thousands of dollars for somebody to service my refrigeration, which I thought was a little out of reason. And I finally found this guy that does all my service for super reasonable, and he's almost an order of magnitude less than everybody else, and his service is super high standard. And he's actually right here in Alexandria. So just don't accept everything you say at face value.
The very last question, what's next for Ono Brewing Company?
Well, we're actually looking to expand here in Northern Virginia. We're not actually going to put another tasting room. Our tasting room has still got tons of potential for growth. We just need more room to store beer. Our distribution footprints hit pretty high now. We're actually all the way down in Virginia Beach. So we just need more room to put more beer.
Right.
Cyndi and Scott, it has been a pleasure working with you from the start. Just to sit here and see the incredible growth that you've experienced here is amazing. Thank you for sharing your story today. We greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Thank
Karen.
you so much. Appreciate it.